Hi, my name is Felina Hansen, and I am the president of the San Diego chapter of the National Association of Women Business Owners. I am so excited to share this panel release with you. We have 6 amazing corporate leaders who will be sharing a bit of their story. They'll be talking about how they and their companies support female entrepreneurs, and as well we'll be discussing diversity and inclusion initiatives within their companies. Before we get to the panel event, I want to introduce one of our board members. We are grateful to Jennifer for sponsoring this panel and supporting the 2020 BRAVA Awards.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Rayner. I am president of the Retirement Consulting Group. We work with organizations to design, implement, and communicate employer-sponsored retirement plans. I'm in a unique position in that I am a female business owner, but I also work closely with female corporate leaders to engage and empower their employees. I recently joined NABO San Diego in an effort to find a way to help support other female business owners. What I found was a vast community and network of female business leaders. These are the women, these are the leaders that will pave the way for all the future women to follow.
One more thing before we dive into the panel event. The voting for this particular panel is only open through September 11th. So be sure to go to bravaawards.org and vote for your favorite corporate leader.
My name is Joanne Peterson. I am the Director of Training and Development for Taylor Guitars. For those of you who don't know who Taylor Guitars is, we are the #1 acoustic manufacturer of guitars in the United States, and also the #1 seller of acoustic guitars. So it's a great company to work for. We strive for sustainability, and through COVID, it's been an amazing company to work for. Homegrown, out of a garage, so it's pretty cool.
I'm Sarah Hassaine. I'm a manager of inclusion and diversity at Qualcomm. I've been there over 4 years, and Qualcomm is probably closer to you than you may know. We design and manufacture semiconductors and wireless telecommunication products. So think of the chips in your phone and in a lot of the products that you interact with, like headphones and smartwatches.
Hi, I'm Karleen Harp. I'm the Human Resources Manager at Rainbow Municipal Water District. We are population-wise very small. We serve about 20,000 customers. Well, there's a population of 20,000. We have about 8,000 service connections in the area of Fallbrook and Bonsall. So we serve from the Temecula border down to Escondido, Valley Center, bordering Oceanside, and Vista and Camp Pendleton.
Pamela Gabriel. I work for Bank of America as the Senior Vice President, San Diego Market Manager. In my particular role, I oversee the bank's environmental, social governance priorities, most specifically overseeing our strategy for Bank of America, specifically here in San Diego, deploying our foundation and sponsorship dollars here in the market.
My name is Lydia McGee, and I'm a Principal Public Affairs Rep with the Business Outreach Team for the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Metropolitan Water District is the regional wholesaler of water and the largest provider of water in the United States. We have 26 member agencies. As a wholesaler, we sell water to our member agencies. They in turn sell water to businesses as well as residential customers. We cover 5,200 square area of our service area that ranges from the Ventura County to the Mexican border. Our member agency service area, the counties include Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, Ventura, and San Diego.
Formerly Vice President of Communications and Marketing at Illumina, but I'm in a transition phase right now where I've taken, ironically, a 6-month sabbatical during COVID. My last day in the office was literally right before we all went on lockdown.
for me, because I was a business owner, a female business owner for 12 years before I went back into the corporate life, I understand the ability to network and the ability to volunteer. It has been so critical. So over the years, I sat on the YMCA Board of Directors in Escondido for almost 19 years. I worked with the Boys and Girls Club. I worked with the Salvation Army, and currently I work with the East County Development Group, and I sit on the board, but I also chair the skilled workforce. And for us, that means looking for those folks who need help, who need support, who need a mentor, and allowing them access to the resources that we have. So as a company, we support multiple nonprofits, but we also focus on like the National Association of Music Manufacturers. We focus on women in music. We focus on how can we help those around us become the best that they can be. So when we hire women here at Taylor, which we have quite a few women who build our guitars and are in leadership positions. So it's that mentorship that we have and that I have. And it's kind of cool. I get to do what I love, right? And I think that if you do what you love, it's that passion that kind of comes through. And I get to share that with the women that are part of our team here at Taylor, and then all of the nonprofits that I'm a part of.
Well, I have the joy in my role to be able to work with a lot of different communities, and women is definitely a target community. So it's one of our objectives and my personal objective to partner and support financially and with resources women-owned businesses and women-run initiatives. So supporting girls in tech, women who code, and a lot of initiatives that women have started around getting kids and especially young girls exposed to STEM, and partnering with schools as well. Another initiative that I'm proud of is partnering with female consultants who are independently consulting, whether it's around training or building confidence for women and soft skill initiatives. So we partner with Athena, we partner with different independent-owned diversity and inclusion consultants who are female, and so really trying to focus on supporting that target group. And lastly, I was able to partner with a lot of women-owned and run initiatives in tech, and we together formed a coalition called the San Diego Tech Women Coalition, and we organize events every few months, and that's actually something that my team at Qualcomm sponsors as well, again trying to support and activate our women internally to support external women who are trying to run their businesses. And on a personal level, I'm all about supporting women who have their own small businesses, whether it's farmers markets, flea markets, stores, online shops. I really try to make that a personal objective for gift giving and for myself.
When you're in human resources, especially in male-dominated fields, often you're the only female member of the senior leadership team. And I'm not the only female member of our senior leadership team. Our finance manager is also female, and when we look to work with vendors, which we frequently do when we're looking to work with consultants and trainers, we make a point to seek out vendors who are female owned and consultants who are female owned to put in a bid. Of course, we're a public agency, so we follow our administrative code in terms of how we select and qualify the vendors, but we're making sure that we're seeking out and inviting those female-owned business owners to put in quotes when we get those quotes. And we have worked with some that I've known in the San Diego business community for a number of years. Before I was at the Water District, I was a female-owned business owner, so it's fortunate that I'm able to leverage those relationships and make sure that they're included in our selection process and we're able to work with them.
I have to say, working for Bank of America, I'm extremely proud of the investments that they make for women. We try to ensure that we have women leadership across the board, also on our official Bank of America board in senior leadership positions. In addition to that, we also have significant investments in partnerships such as NABO, as well as with the Tory Burch Foundation, investing in small business entrepreneurs all throughout the country. We have a global ambassadors program in which we go to other countries and actually provide mentorship to women in those countries so that they can start their own businesses. from supporting organizations externally to supporting our internal associates. We even have diversity and inclusion groups such as Lead for Women, which we have 30,000 women throughout the country that are part of this particular employee network so that they can create leadership development for women specifically. And then even we do have, women in tech, and they just have such a significant investment into ourselves personally as well as externally. Not only do we have like competitive benefits, I think even for women, we have probably the longest, I think, from what I understand, as far as parental leave. I think it's about 16 weeks plus, everything else that you get. So from a company standpoint, it's fairly significant, and I'm very proud to be able to work with them. Personally, myself, I have always tried to showcase my leadership throughout my role here at Bank of America in the last 20 years in every market that I've been in, whether it's through NABO or taking a particular role within Lead and ensuring that we are, representing for Susan G. Komen or whatever it may be. I try to do that not only in my professional life, but with my personal. In addition to, with our particular role, we do host a lot of client events. We have just created a diverse supplier list of organizations that are women-led, and I'd always try to use those as like my vendors for my particular events to support women throughout.
I'd say the widest range is through our membership and our sponsorship program. We have a team of 4 members on our business outreach team, and by supporting the various community-based organizations, specifically the women-owned organizations, NABO, the various chapters, NAWIC, WEBEC West, those are specifically the women-owned business community-based organizations. We're able to cast a wider net in terms of training and actually bringing in our staff and the decision makers to connect them with the decision makers for opportunities within our organization. I take a lot of pride in bringing in our staff, because without the staff and decision makers, our program would not be a success. Relationships are very, very important. So business outreach is actually the connector to get the business owners or the women-owned businesses that are looking for opportunities connected with the right individuals. And that's very, very important. When I first came to business outreach, actually my background is human resources. I spent 10 years in human resources at MWD. As a result, that gave me sort of, I don't want to say an advantage, but an opportunity to connect business owners with the decision makers by recruiting from all different areas of the organization. I knew who the decision makers were, who were the key people, whereas not having that background, it would pretty much be at a disadvantage. So as a result of that, we have 2 signature events twice a year. Each event, we call it Connect to Met, in which we partner with our member agencies, because sometimes it can be difficult to get contracts with Metropolitan because we are the wholesalers in work that we do. But our member agencies also have opportunities too. So depending on where you fit in the scheme of things, it gives you a wider range to connect.
Philosophically, sort of at Illumina, I always believed that there were 3 different levels of doing that. So one is one-on-one, really through being available to women to mentor. The other was facilitating, as a senior woman, the opportunities within the organization for women to grow and expand their network, make connections and learn. And then the third level, and many of you have talked about this, was building organizational outreach into the community. At Illumina, there were many ways that we did that. It included philanthropically with things like the Science and Engineering Festival and reaching out to women who code and girls who code, and doing events with various organizations like Healthcare Business Women's Organization, Athena, Women in Bio, and also the Society for Women Engineers, and a lot of very vertical specific organizations, but then also building out a women's leadership network inside the company that enabled women at all levels to really be able to network with senior women, with women in the community through those organizations I mentioned, and to really make connections to just form those one-on-one bonds with women and be able to have shared experiences. I think, you know, Lydia mentioned relationships, and I agree, relationships are so very important. I think now more than ever, now that we're all sitting in front of our computers all the time, I've found, interestingly, as I've moved into this time where I've created some space for myself and have been doing some consulting and helping early stage companies and women, seeing how many women are actually moving into a small business kind of framework, whether it's consulting or starting up something on their own, for a variety of reasons. And it's those relationships and helping them to network that I find myself doing less formally, and then more formally, you know, maintaining the connections that I have and the roles that I have at UCSD with helping in the biological sciences department there in a variety of capacities, and then with the Science and Engineering Festival that is trying to find ways to still reach young girls and boys out in the community, despite being challenged by the lack of being able to bring activities and experiences to them. So it's a whole brave new world. So those are some of the things that I have done and am doing to try to help women before and after me to really succeed.
It's interesting when we think about diversity and inclusion at Taylor. One of the things that drew me to Taylor was that you can be exactly who you are, right? You can have tattoos, you can have purple hair, you can have piercings, you can dress to the nines, or you can dress in shorts and flip-flops as long as you're not on the production floor, right? And so because of that culture, we want people to be who they are, because we believe that if you are truly who you are, then you're going to be more creative and innovative, right? And so when I am facilitating leadership groups or coaching one-on-one, it's really about making sure we're bringing out the best in them to inspire and enable them to be who they are and to be unique, right? Because if we were all the same, life would be really boring. So some of the things, obviously, I think through these last 4 or 5 months, I think we can all do better, right? And that's one of the things that we're focusing now is how do we get better at what we're doing, and making sure that everybody goes through unconscious bias and everybody, you know, has a say, and that we're able to express ourselves in a way that the company listens. And our ability to do that as a leader has been very, very important to us. And so we're striving every single day, bringing it out, really looking at our demographics. Do we have any gaps, you know, when we're recruiting? Because we are hiring every single week. It's not stopping for us, right? And making sure that we are bringing that across the board. The other thing we did is we created a welcome video for all of our employees. And we specifically, when I was setting up the script and writing the storyboard, it was like, let's show our diversity. Let's show all the different languages that our folks speak. Let's show our Cameroon, you know, facility. Let's show our Amsterdam. Let's show our Mexico. Let's show our San Diego. And we made sure that everybody was able to share that. And then we did something at the end, and we had everybody say, "Welcome to Taylor," who spoke a different language, to say that in that language. So it was kind of cool to kind of bring it together. So no matter where you work across the globe for Taylor, that you know that we're all in one place. So those are a few things that we're doing.
Diversity and inclusion for Qualcomm has been a journey, like it is. In terms of the diversity side, we really focus on our communities and focus on really engaging with leaders and hiring managers. I like to say I'm like a consultant. In terms of building diversity, I work with brand, I work with marketing, in terms of the copy we have, the images we use, where we show up as a company, making sure that we target all communities, whether it's veteran, disability, women, underrepresented minorities. So we are becoming very intentional and more thoughtful about where we show up and how we show up. In terms of supporting our employee resource groups, we, are focused on giving them all the right resources, consulting, guidance for bringing in speakers, professional development opportunities, mentorship opportunities, and also partnering with a lot of HR partners and SVPs around how to make sure we have the right professional development opportunities in place for retention. And that's a really important part. Another big part with our employee resource groups is outreach to the community. And that's where we are focusing on the pipeline, whether it's with universities and high schools and other programs, just making sure that we're active in the pipeline and that they think about Qualcomm later on. So that's from the diversity side. On the inclusion side, the inclusion building, working a lot with like legal and different groups around how to make our campus more accessible, thinking about different community needs. So most recently, I got expectant mother spots put in, emergency pumping supplies, making sure that we have enough escape routes in place and escape measures in place for someone who might be differently abled in case of an emergency. And so really thinking through all the gaps of what inclusion looks like, as well as like our retention efforts for different communities, just looking at the data. And the data really helps drive a lot of the decisions behind the initiatives that we're focusing on. And lastly, it's partnerships, partnering with the right companies and organizations that are really helping organizations and companies like Qualcomm with some of the challenges that we're having around how to build diversity and inclusion.
One of the challenges when I started at the Water District 4 years ago was trying to figure out how to approach diversity and inclusion, because with an organization that at the time had about 50 employees, we don't have the resources or the opportunities that a larger organization with 500 or 5,000 employees would have. So one of the first things that I did was I made sure that when I was going out for recruitment that we're advertising in locations where we can hopefully attract those diverse candidates. So when we have an IT position, I'm advertising, and there's an organization I think is called People of Color in IT. So we advertise there. There's organizations for women in construction where we advertise. And we were successful in attracting female candidates to several roles that are fairly male dominated. And one of the things that I was pleasantly surprised about was one of the best resources for us to attract diverse candidate pools was recruiting veterans. So we were able to get some women into some really key senior staff positions that serve operations and serve engineering into roles that are typically, or it had traditionally been dominated by men, and they're great additions to the team. In terms of inclusion, one of the biggest challenges that we had was for decades, there had not been a positive culture. So we've been in a multi-year process to make it a workplace where employees can really thrive. And we partnered with a female-owned business consultant in the human resources community here in San Diego to do a culture survey and identify the key areas, including things like work-life balance that are an indicator of how we're serving the families who have someone who works for us. And it's really been a multi-year process, and I'm really, really proud of the fact that we've had to say goodbye to some people in order to get rid of some toxic people who are really making it not an inclusive culture for the employees who really wanted to be there and thrive. And we've seen some really positive indicators, employees who have left who are wanting to come back and work for us because they've heard that, you know, we've turned that corner and we've become a place where people want to stay, want to come back to, and want to be a part of the things that we're doing. In terms of, as part of the process, when we were working on inclusion and the culture change, we did offer some trainings and long-term coaching for some of our people that we'd identified who had some challenges and needed to make some changes. So we started with the civility training, which is an anti-bullying training that's not required. You know, it's not a state mandated training, but that's just something that we felt was important for our workforce to understand, that it's okay to say, no, that's not okay behavior for my supervisor to be exhibiting towards others. And this is what we expect of everyone. And of course, that included information about, you know, diversity and definitions of microaggressions. And we had some employees who were defensive and surprised at what those would be. but it opened a really good dialogue. We also had an existing relationship with a trainer that's been providing really, really high caliber communication and customer service training to our workforce, who is a Black man. So when we started, when the Black Lives Matter movement really came to the awareness of a lot of our employees who that wasn't top of mind for a lot of our workforce, we were able to bring him in, and it was a familiar face that we already had an established rapport with him. Our employees already knew him and trusted him. And so that message of how diversity and inclusion matter, you know, the things that they could do in the workforce coming from a voice that they were already familiar with and already had that trusted relationship with. It's really important for our employees to be able to hear the message, and I think, you know, take it to heart as well.
I think, you know, truly diversity inclusion is really something that we lead by, starting with Mr. Moynihan. He is literally the chair of our Diversity and Inclusion Council here at Bank of America. And I think that really translates into everything that we do. Definitely, because we have those resources, just because Moynihan is the Diversity and Inclusion chair, if we don't also take the opportunity to lead here in San Diego, it doesn't actually translate to them that. But so for me, we really take a look at it from investing into our people, our community, as well as our clients. And so with our associates, I mentioned this earlier before, but we have a lot of employee engagement networks, specifically so that people can then identify with their own culture, and they know that they're more than welcome to bring their own self to work. So we do have a DAN, it's our disabled advocacy network. We have even My Environment, Lead for Women, which I mentioned earlier, LGBTQ, as well as ALN, OLA, BPG, and all of those different components. And so for a long time, Bank of America has really encouraged that type of inclusion and bringing your whole self to work. As far as what we do in, you know, as a company, I think we set a goal a while ago to make sure that we are 50% women in the workforce, not only at the board level, but all the way through. And I think that the fact that we've accomplished that, obviously there's still always more work to do, right? I think it's investing in the next leaders of women, so then that way they're ready to take on the next senior level position on his management team, and that continuous investment. But to reach that milestone as a company of over 200,000 associates, I think is fairly significant to say that we can do that across the globe. We've also made a commitment to hiring 10,000 military veterans as part of our workforce. We're actually celebrating 100 years of supporting the military in the communities, which is really significant for us. And here locally for myself, what I really try to do, because again, I realize that I am in this position of with these resources, is to make sure that we also provide those resources back to the community. So one example is our partnership with the San Diego Chamber. We're investing in their women's on boards and commissions. So then that way it goes back out to the community for other women who are in other organizations to be able to be paired and matched and have that opportunity to lead and create pathways for other women. And we're constantly looking for that opportunity, not only with even NABO, but Athena and just other organizations that help women across the board throughout the community, because it's not fair for us to just do that internally, but we have to make sure that it happens in San Diego as well.
In terms of diversity and inclusion, recently, I'd say within the past month, 2 months, with the Black Lives Matter initiative, our general manager actually took the lead as the general manager, and MWD is rolling out an initiative, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative. That initiative includes our employee resource groups. The employee resource groups consist of the various ethnic resource groups, as well as some of the other groups. And one in particular has to do with I can't think of the exact name, but employees that are dealing with aging parents. We have various resource groups, and that really spreads the net in terms of what's involved. But what they're doing, they're actually going to be meeting again, I think this week, to come up with some ideas on what it's going to look like in terms of our diversity, equity, inclusion, and get input, feedback. Part of that task force is actually going to include our unions as well. We have several unions. So it's a really large area. In terms of diversity, probably about 26% of our employees are female, the rest male. So it's pretty much a male-dominated organization. But the beauty is, in terms of for women, we have two organizations, female employee resource groups. One is WHAM, Women of Metropolitan, and the other one is SWE, the Society of Women Engineers. They're very active within the organization and doing things. And you know, as women, we will take the lead. You give us an opportunity, we'll take the lead and we'll show you how to do it. And that's what's happening at Metropolitan. A lot of our employees don't leave. We have a very low attrition rate. What's happening now, because we have an aging workforce, we're hiring employees at a rate. Well, before the pandemic hit, it was hard to keep up with the hiring because we had so many employees, 50 and above, that are leaving the organization. So in terms of diversity and inclusion, you're looking at 4 different generations in the workplace. And that's a whole nother culture in itself. The beauty is, which is started in our business outreach team, we have 2 teams in the business outreach section. One is innovation and technology. Metropolitan is becoming very creative in the terms of innovation. It's not only just technology, but it's new ideas. And you're bringing in all the various generations across the board to make the organization much better, make it resilient, taking it to the next level. So that's another area that's taking place. In terms of the disabled veterans, and I say the disabled veterans because I'm actually the Disabled Veteran Business Enterprise Liaison. We're very active in the disabled veteran community. One of the organizations that's very prominent that we partner with, there are actually several, but the Veteran in Business Network. They're bringing in the veterans, the disabled veterans, and there's a lot of things that are taking place in that community, as well as the U.S. Veterans Alliances. So we're able to partner with the various community-based organizations, whether it be membership, sponsorships. And one thing I didn't bring up is matchmaking. When we have events, we're able to do matchmaking. That's an opportunity for the businesses to form relationships. You know, sometimes opportunities may not happen immediately, but as time passes by, you remember, oh, I spoke with so-and-so, say maybe a couple of weeks ago or a month ago or a year ago. And that's what's the beauty about our program in terms of doing business with us. And that helps with our diversity and our inclusion. In terms of our recruitment process, we have, in some instances, recruitments that are specifically targeted. One is our apprentice program. So there are various areas at all levels. And then partnering with the communities on the business outreach side, those communities that are underrepresented in terms of opportunities. So it's across the human resources side, but also on the business outreach side. And the success ties into the C-suite. It starts with the general manager, and that's who's taking the lead at MWD. So everything follows.
I'll share a couple of things. So in my role in running marketing and communications at Illumina, I was more tangentially involved with things like diversity and inclusion. And like many of you have said, it has been a journey. And under Illumina's current CEO, Francis D'Souza, a lot of acceleration on that journey has transpired. So I think it always helps, like many of you have voiced, when you have top-down support of really driving behavioral change in the organization. And so, you know, the role that I played in that was really fostering the voice of women in the organization at the executive level and trying to bring back some of that feedback from a diversity standpoint. And eventually, over the last year, Illumina formed ERGs and really formalized the journey around allowing and helping and fueling employees to really kind of form groups around their interests and areas and things like that. So it may sound simple, but in simply a role of overseeing global marketing, just the inclusion culture, I think, and being a leader of that and a representative of that, it's in a much smaller way than many of you have voiced, but really, you know, with a team of over 500 people that reside around the world, I think being self-aware as a leader and creating space for inclusion, it's the culture aspects that so many of you have talked about, is really important. You know, when you have folks who are trying to collaborate in innovation cultures and technology, so much of what creates that magic is about representing different points of view from different lenses. And if you don't create space for people to be able to voice their opinions and thoughts, especially when English is a second language, when you're collaborating like we are here, global calls with different time zones and people trying to jump in, I have found that there are a lot of, you know, behaviors in myself that I had to cultivate and model in order to make that work in a global company. And interestingly, now in my current life, many smaller organizations are really taking that lens as a primary lens as they're getting started, which I think is pretty amazing. And I'm happy to help do that, whether it's forming advisory boards, recruiting women to their boards or to their leadership teams. And so that's really how I'm helping that to happen in a smaller way today. I would have answered that a lot differently a few months ago. I would say, you know, something interesting or funny is I probably haven't put on anything with a waistband in 4 months, but that's just between us girls. You know, I'm so not interesting right now, but I have found a new love for getting out and walking. I have probably walked over 100 miles in the last couple of months, and I never thought I would hear myself say that. So there's my boring, interesting thing.
My grandkids, for one. I am a grandmother of 9. Then they are the joy of my life. But I'm also a river rat, right? We have a place out at the Colorado River that we go every other weekend. And, you know, in the summer we boat, and in the winter we 4-wheel. So, you know, just getting out in nature. And Karen, I'm with you, right? Walking and not wearing, I think today was the first day I actually put on pants that I had to button. So I feel you.
I'm happiest on the dance floor. I love dancing salsa and bachata. That's like my happy place. Now with COVID, it makes it a bit harder. So I'm trying to get into like puzzles and like Legos and just something that kind of relaxing, but also just kind of, it's a nice meditative but slight small thing to do. But I definitely miss dancing. I miss the dance floor.
Well, it's so funny because I was just going to say, similar to Sarah, that I miss my salsa dancing so much. There was a car that was playing bachata. He pulled up onto the corner and I just started dancing and I was like, oh, I miss it. So that is definitely something that I love. Every time I move to a new city, I go out to salsa dance by myself. It's kind of a tradition. During this period of time of shelter in place, I'm actually hoping my ankle heals so that I can go back out and do it, because I did it in San Diego and I died. So I'm hoping that this fixes everything.
Funny, like Sarah and Pamela, I love dancing. I miss that so much. But I do Chicago stepping and Detroit ballroom dancing. Puzzles, I've settled for my puzzles. I'm actually putting together a 2,500 piece puzzle right now that's laid out in my guest bedroom. And then I love reading. So this allows me to catch up on my reading. So that's what I miss.
I'm going to stop my virtual background so you can see the wall behind me. So those are marathon and half marathon medals from years ago. So obviously during COVID, that's not something that's happening. No large groups congregating together, but we can still train virtually, and fortunate to live in a neighborhood that's just an absolutely beautiful place to walk. I love looking at all the yards and just seeing all the cool things that people have done with it and the flowers. And so I might not be so excited about that limitation during winter when it's cold and wet, but for now, that's my happy place when I need to get outside the house and do that, because like everybody, I think I've been working from home since March, so that's how I get out into the world.
It's these women that you've seen in this panel that are continually finding ways to create initiatives, to sponsor programs, to find ways to not only lift up women in the community, but everyone in their community.